You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning and welcome to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM 312-255-8408. You can also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowitz, director of the cathedral, and co-host Mark Teresi, executive director. We're laughing because happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween
to everybody. All Hallows Eve.
I haven't had hair on my head in decades.
40 years. And we're laughing because for those who are watching on YouTube, I'm dressed as Father ZZ Top, and Mark Teresi has a blonde wig.
Jerry Garcia, maybe.
And also want to introduce, as part of this threesome, Father Lou Camelli.
Moses.
Yeah. The Cardinals delegate for Formation and Mission is in the studio live to talk about All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day with his beard.
Yep.
So good morning, Father Luke Camelli, and to Mark. And this is fun.
Thank you, Father
This
Greg.
is fun. Happy Halloween, which I found interesting this past weekend. The number of not only children walking around in costume, but the number of parents who also dress up in costume.
Oh, yeah.
Our four granddaughters were all the same outfit. They were a league of their own from the movie with the same outfit and the caps.
From that baseball, the baseball women's league.
And our grandson was a cow.
Oh, my.
Cute as a button.
I'm going to take the wig off right now.
I'm going to get the beard.
I kind of like mine.
I think you should keep it.
I think Mark has a liking for it. In fact, how about a big hand for our guest?
Oh my goodness!
Father Luke Camille, I got a special hand here, and you got to have fun on Halloween.
You have a bag full of tricks.
In fact, do you remember, Father Lou, your very first Halloween outfit? Do you remember what it was, or one of your earliest ones? How about a big hand?
Yeah,
I'm
trying to. No, I think I was a farmer. I think that.
Farmer?
Farmer.
How about for you,
I think
Mark?
I was Casper.
In fact, you'll like this story. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had Bishop Bob Barron on about 6 years ago on Halloween. I said, Bob, what was your very first Halloween costume?
St. Thomas Aquinas.
And he said he dressed up as a priest.
Oh.
In kindergarten. And then he asked me, he says, well, Greg, what was your first Halloween outfit? And I said I was in kindergarten. I dressed up as Mr. Magoo, the cartoon character. How appropriate. Him dressed up as a priest, and me as dressed up as Mr. Magoo. So
tell us, both your futures were there in the costumes.
Both our futures were carved right there in kindergarten. And Father Lou, what is special about today? We call it Halloween, but it's also All Hallows Eve. Explain that.
Yeah. Well, it's complicated in a way. We have a tradition. I mean, in the church, this time of year is really pretty special. As we move into the month of November, we're going to the end of the liturgical year, the year of worship, and at this time, we're looking back to what has happened, and we're looking ahead to the future that God promises us. And in the middle of all that, we remember the men and women of faith, the saints who've gone before us, and we also remember our beloved dead. So, it's all of one piece. And it's interesting. I've been doing a little research on Halloween, that there's a pagan, what they would call a pagan substratum. In other words, there were pagan feasts around this time of year. And in a certain sense, what the church did was baptize that and help to refocus those folk celebrations, pagan folk celebrations, into a commemoration of the saints and of prayers for our deceased brothers and sisters. That's a short.
Well, then, for example, with Halloween today, why the costumes? What's the specific about costumes leading up to All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day?
And don't forget, commercially, it's number 2 after Christmas.
Right, it is.
Is it really?
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. I mean, it's extraordinary. Wow. It's extraordinary. And I think it's the costumes, I don't think there's any big thing except that they're evocative of the people who've gone before us. And, even, for example, in the Jewish tradition, at the Feast of Purim, that celebrates the story of Esther, and the kids dress up too, and so it's really just a way of evoking the past.
What I find interesting is on Halloween, and children run around, a child dressed up as a ghost acts like a ghost, a football player acts like a football player, a ballerina acts like a ballerina. So you put on that character at that time, and it's just fascinating. And all of a sudden, you become different. You go in groups of children, and you go door to door asking for candy. It's a very fun festival. I remember when I was a kid, have my bags of candy, go home and split on the table, and say, "Oh, someone gave me an apple. Here, Mom, you can have the apple." I'm not interested in the apple. And
it's a different world now, though, too. Once you dump the candy out with the kids, you better look and see.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's a different.
Yeah, it's sad
world.
when people lace it with something poison. It's like, how can you do that? Or what's becoming popular are now even in church parking lots, like trunk and treat.
Yeah.
So all these cars gather, pop the lids open of the trunk. Kids go from car to car in the back, and families gather.
That's right.
And it's fascinating.
It's a great idea. Now, how do we move from Halloween to All Saints? I know some schools, when they celebrate Halloween, they want the kids to dress up like saints.
Right.
Is there a connection there? Or?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the word itself, hallows, All Hallows, would be an Old English word for saints.
Oh.
And ween, Eve. So All Saints Eve. That's what it really is. So, that there's a connection.
So today's really a precursor for tomorrow.
Right. I mean, and in the worship life of the church, with a big feast, we always celebrate a vigil. This is the Vigil of All Saints. And again, if you want to put it in Old English, it's Halloween. All Hallows or All Saints.
Then, Lou, what is the significance of All Saints Day? What are we remembering tomorrow?
We're remembering all the women and men who've gone before us, who are saints, who have already come into the glory of God. And there are a number of things involved, and this is the larger question of our devotion to the saints. Why the saints? What do they do? What the saints do is they give us very concrete manifestations of how to live a life that's holy. Everybody is different. Everybody is different. We're men and women, young and old. Some of us work with our hands, some work with our minds. Some, people are coming from different cultures, and the power of the saints as examples is that they show us that no matter what your situation is, whatever your context, you can grow in holiness. You can become and live out your life as a disciple of Jesus.
Now, who are your go-to saints?
Well, I'd say
St. Gregory.
St. Gregory. Well, he lives in our house. Yeah. There are a number of them that are very, very important.
Give folks
for
a
me.
few examples.
Yeah, let me
just
give you an
because
example.
maybe it'll help.
For example,
them.
the two, because the saints not only intercede for us, they pray for us before God. Not only do they give us an example of a holy life, but they also are instructive. And there are two saints in particular that have been very instructive for me. And they are the two Teresas. Teresa of Jesus, also known as Teresa of Avila, and Therese of Lisieux, also known as the Little Flower.
Now, why so for those two?
Because what they have done for me is they've helped me to learn how to pray. Both of them, by the way, are doctors of the church. And in a very simple kind of but direct way, they have been so helpful. Let me give you, should I?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so like Teresa of Avila, she gives a definition of prayer, which is just extraordinary. She says prayer is a matter of friendship. It means taking time frequently to be alone with the one we know who loves us. Taking time frequently to be alone with the one we know who loves us. All right, so what she did in that sentence is encapsulated her whole prayer experience. I mean, she was a great mystic and, had visions. But when all was said and done, her prayer was taking time frequently to be alone with the God she knew who loved her.
And you said that prayer is a friendship, she said?
Yeah, it's a matter of an exchange of friends.
Wow.
So,
That's
and then
that's profound, but simple.
Therese of Lisieux, the last year of her life, didn't have any of the feelings of assurance of faith, but what she had was complete surrender into God's hands.
Complete
And
trust.
trust. And that prayer at the end of her life, the her very last words were, "Oh, how I love him. Oh, how I love him." So she was able to navigate through what she called a cloud or a dark night of the soul, if you will, simply on trust and also her little way, not doing great things or extraordinary things, but doing ordinary things with great love. And making everything, not just praying, but being prayerful.
Beautiful. Now,
Take us to break, Mark.
I will. Can I tell Teresa of
Sure.
Avila a quick story?
Yeah.
So we had a letter when I was at Mundelein. They found a Teresa of Avila.
Oh, really? Wow.
A letter?
Right. And
Yeah, she wrote, considerable.
and the what's the order? The Carmelites.
Yep.
They didn't know the letter existed.
Oh, wow.
So that we went, we gave them the letter. They translated it. Became like this. We brought it down to Florida for this conference. People just reverenced it. But anyway, that's not my story.
No, was it a gift given to Cardinal Mundelein?
It was. There are 307
Yeah.
saint letters up at Mundelein.
How many?
307.
He acquired a lot.
Yeah.
Saint letters.
And Mike,
Wow.
I can't remember, Mike
Fuller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Fuller, as his sabbatical, helped document and translate them. Anyway, but my story quickly. So St. Teresa of Avila is going with a young nun, and she's going to ask this donor for money. And they come in, the donor again, and the young nun says to Teresa, that really is unsightly, just asking for money like that. And St. Teresa said to her, well, money is like manure. It stinks, you spread it out, but some good things grow from it. And
That's a great story.
That was kind of my mantra as a development person. Anyway, WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-840. You can go to YouTube.com/Catholic Chicago with Father Luke Camelli. We'll be back in a few minutes and continue our conversation on All Saints, All Souls Day. Please stay tuned.
Catholic Charities Refugee Resettlement Program has been especially busy this year, assisting individuals and families who have fled dangerous situations in their homeland, including Afghanistan and the Ukraine. The Refugee Resettlement Team helps with everything they need to start to rebuild their lives in a new country, including housing, employment, clothing, food, English classes, and referrals for legal and immigration services. The refugees are tremendously grateful for the compassion and practical help they're receiving, and they're giving back and helping each other plan for a brighter, safer future. Volunteer opportunities are currently available for those who would like to be family mentors and tutors so children and adults can practice English. To learn more about these rewarding opportunities, call 312-655-7096. That's 312-655-7096.
This is year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Do you have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
We're back. WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Wigless, Mark Teresi, 312-255-8408. You go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago with Father Lou Camelli. Father Lou.
Mark, I couldn't. You had that wig on. I could barely get the introduction out. And also Lou's beard. For those that are watching YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. Those that are on radio.
What about you, ZZ Top or whoever?
Father ZZ Top.
Looked like an animal had landed on your head.
Michael and Brian in the studio, in the engineer's room, were just kind of shaking their head and laughing.
Different generations look at saints differently. So I'm curious, as a young person, what was your confirmation name and why did you pick it?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. Anthony.
Anthony. Why Anthony?
Of Padua.
And why?
I just, at that point, I had been reading things about St. Francis and the early Franciscans, and Anthony of Padua, for some reason, just was a very attractive figure.
How about for you, Mark?
Peter.
And I was Paul.
And I was Peter because of St. Peter, but also my confirmation sponsor was my Uncle Peter.
And I took Paul because I just liked Paul. He was a very fierce competitor in terms of fiery. Yeah. I just was always attracted to St. Paul. And so I took it in fourth grade, Mary Seat of Wisdom, Paul.
Yeah, well.
I picked Peter because he was the boss. He was the leader. And you were talking about a particular saint that you.
There was one in the break where I was thinking this, and in fact, I've written about him too. His name is Saint Nicholas the Idiot.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, this is a great story.
Now, is this true?
Yeah. So here it is. One of my classmates went to Trani, which is a town near Bari in southern Italy, and the cathedral there is dedicated to Saint Nicholas the Idiot, who also, by the way, has another name, Saint Nicholas the Pilgrim, which is a little nicer.
it is.
But here's the story. He was born in Greece, and as a small child, in some sense, disabled, probably, and maybe also with Tourette syndrome.
Oh, okay.
But as a child, he did two things. One, he kept, because he spoke, obviously, because he was born in Greece, he spoke Greek, but he would say kind of constantly, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. He did that, and he gave bread and food to people who were hungry. So those are the two things. But he did it kind of so intensely and compulsively that his mother just couldn't take it anymore. So she sent him to a monastery. So he's with the monks. The monks couldn't take him either. I mean, after a while, just said, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, giving away food. So finally he gets on a boat. He ends up in Trani, near Bari, does the same thing. People mock him. They laugh at him and all this and that. And this is around the year 1000 or so, at the end of the first millennium. He died, and then all of a sudden people realized this guy was a saint. He was a saint. And when he was canonized by popular acclamation just in a few years. Because here's the key. He called on God's mercy, and he gave to those who were in need service. And he had the basics. He had the basics.
Faith in action.
Yeah, and it was just very simple. But isn't it an extraordinary story?
Oh, yeah.
How old was he when he died, roughly?
He was about early 20s.
So it was when his mother sent him to the monastery at a very young age.
Well, he was about 10, yeah.
10 years old?
Yeah, 10. I mean, she couldn't take it.
Well, you think about it, Lord have mercy and feeding the poor, right there in word and action summarizes everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
So what that is done for me is my life can seem kind of complicated at times, and doing this and that and trying to. I said, well, you know what? The one important thing that Jesus talked about when he spoke to Martha, and you got to keep going back to that. And the saints somehow were able to key into that. The one important thing.
That's fascinating. Now we segue from saints. It's so beautiful. You go from All Hallows Eve today. Tomorrow, All Saints' Day, a holy day of obligation. Lou, the significance of Wednesday, November 2nd, All Souls Day.
Yeah, that and more technically known as a commemoration of all the faithful departed, and that
of all of everybody.
Of everybody, and it's this is important in our tradition. I think to remember the dead, those who've gone before us, marked with the sign of faith. And there are a number of different dimensions to this. First of all, I look at it in four ways. It has to do with grief, thanksgiving, commendation, and faith. So in the grief, that we accept the loss of our lives, and we recognize that. But it's not a terminal loss. It's not a terminal loss, and faith moves us forward. The second thing is gratitude. When we have this commemoration of the faithful departed, we are grateful for what we have received from those who have gone before us, because we do not stand alone in our faith, but on the shoulders of those women and men who've gone before us. That's a second thing. Gratitude for everything that they've done and given to us. And then commendation. This is really important. We pray for the dead. What does that mean? That means we put them in God's hands. We believe that a lot of us, maybe most of us, go to the Lord. We die with some loose ends. Not everything is neatly packaged. So in order to see God face to face, who is absolute love and full truth, we need to be purified. We ask the Lord to purify those people who have died so that they can quickly meet God face to face. And then finally, faith, it's a reaffirmation in the power of the resurrection of Jesus to bring life out of death. So that's in a
I think it's so it was grief, gratitude, commendation,
faith,
and faith. The thing is, I find, like, for example, Wednesday at 5:15 p.m., our special All Souls Day liturgy, to especially remember those who have died in the last year.
Right.
And people will bring pictures of loved ones and put them on the steps of the cathedral. It's very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
And the tears flow to remember
grief.
To remember love. Like, my mother died in January of 2020. It's going on 3 years. In some ways, to Mark and Lou, I miss my mother more today than ever before. And that's just natural. I miss my mother. You miss a loved one. That's part of the grief. Right. But also, she is with God. And that is a hope and the promise through the resurrection. And I always say, if resurrection is good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for us.
And I always think musically, and Steve Janko wrote that Saints of God, Saints
Beautiful
of God
song.
Come to her aid. And people respond. So part of the song is receive her soul.
Right, commending.
And then we receive her soul, present her to God the Most High. I mean, and then it's the faith. They're all those pieces are in that commendation. And we celebrate that at a funeral, at the end of the Mass.
And that's I think it makes so much sense coming from All Saints Day, the saints in our church, to remember, to be like, to emulate, but then All Souls Day, that there's many who have died who led saintly lives.
Right.
And many who did not, but somehow the key is to remember loved ones, close and distant, but so part of our tradition is that, I love that beautiful line, for the believer, when we die, life is changed, not ended.
Yeah.
I love that line. For the believer, when we die, life is changed, not ended. Eternal life with God. The non-believer says, it's over, it's over. The believer says, no. We go from life to death to eternal life.
And connection. This is another thing, too. I mean, we stay connected. There are breaks. There are breaks, obviously. But we are connected with those who have died. We are connected with the saints, the communion of saints. The church is not just the church on earth, but it's the church assembled from the saints in heaven and those on earth.
And maybe tie Mother Cabrini being at the cathedral into that whole thought process.
Mother Cabrini. Well, we have to have a whole
It's
show.
Program.
Here's just someone who is right here who walked the streets of Chicago, who prayed, I found out, prayed at St. Paul of the Cross.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Wait, St. Paul the Cross?
In Park Ridge.
Oh, she did?
Yeah. She used to go to the farms that were then
on
the northwest side, and then on her way back to the city, she'd stop off at St. Paul.
I never knew that. And I was raised in Park Ridge.
The Cabrini Contact Center on Gulf Road.
Yeah.
That's one of the properties she acquired.
And also, she was connected to the Nudie Bakery on the northwest side.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So one of my priest friends, Father Mike Saniolo, knew this 102-year-old woman, Mrs. Nudie, at the bakery, and she remembered Mother Cabrini coming to the bakery to get the flour sacks to make into blankets for the sick people in her hospitals.
So she knew Mother Cabrini?
Yeah, she came to her bakery.
Wow.
So what this means for us, especially here in Chicago, is that the saints are close at hand.
Yes.
And
calling us to continue their work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good way of
So isn't that extraordinary?
Did Mother Cabrini die, I think it was 1904?
No, 1917.
Well, she died in 1917.
And then this is the 75th anniversary of her canonization.
1946.
Whatever 75 years would be.
That was the beginning of it.
Of last
47.
year,
It was 47.
47. And we hate to bring this first half to a close. We want to thank in a very special way Father Lou Camelli, the Cardinal's Delegate for Formation and Mission. Lou, you've been a fantastic guest again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being part of the humor in the beginning, wearing the beard beside the wig for Mark Teresi there.
And let's do a show on Mother Cabrini. That would be wonderful.
I think we have something lined up in the near future.
That'd be great.
Good.
Do we, Mike? We haven't. We'll get one. So to Father Luke Camelli, thank you.
You're welcome.
And
My
listening
pleasure.
to Catholic Chicago and WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408. Also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Teresi, and a goodbye to Father Luke Camelli. Stay with us, and again, do not touch that dial.
We are hiring. Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Chicago is looking for mission-driven individuals who want to help make a positive difference in the lives of people in need throughout Cook and Lake counties. Be part of a diverse, talented team of professionals in the largest human services organization in the Midwest. We are dedicated to helping people chart a more stable, happier future for themselves, and we accompany anyone in need, regardless of faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. Competitive salaries and generous benefits add to the satisfaction you'll have every day knowing that you're helping us amplify our impact in Chicago. To see our list of employment opportunities, visit CatholicCharities.net.
I am a seminarian.
The Church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408. Also get us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Teresi. Mark, that was a great first half hour with Father Luke Camelli talking about Halloween, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, All Souls Day. That half hour just flew by.
Yeah, I always sit with him and I always learn something. He's very, very knowledgeable, and he's got a passion for his faith.
But he shares it in such a way that is so understandable.
Yeah.
And 3 points here, 4 points here. It just flows from him. And plus, he's also got a great sense of humor. You had the blonde wig. I had the Father ZZ Top hairdo. And Father Luke with the giant beard.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good. We have a second half program lined up, which will be just as fantastic. Very Reverend Ezekiel Sanchez, rector of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Des Plaines, joins the program to talk about the Day of the Dead, the events taking place this year at the Shrine in Des Plaines. Father Zeke Sanchez, welcome to the program this morning. How are you, Zeke? Can you hear us?
Good morning.
Good morning, Father Zeke Sanchez.
Hi, Father Greg. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good to see you
guys and hear you.
Great to hear and see you, Zeke. Now, go back in history. When I arrived at Niles College Seminary with Mark Teresi around 1985, you came to see me, was it about 1987? Is that right?
1987, coming out of the DeVry Institute of Technology, learning to be an engineer. So I figure I'd build other things other than electronic components.
And I remember, and Mark, I remember this. When Zeke came to see me, he was very afraid that I was going to close the door that day and say, "Thank you for coming. We're not interested." And a very kind, gentle young man before me. I thought to myself, I pray he will enter the seminary and be ordained. And Father Sanchez, you are one of the great priests in Chicago. And
thank you.
Have done tremendous work. And your ordination was 1995. So it's been 27 years now. When I met you, you were young. I was young. You're still young.
So was I.
I'm old.
So am I.
Mark is kind of in my bracket there. So now I know, Zeke, you've been the director of the shrine for how long now?
I've been rector of the shrine for 7 years now.
7 years. And now maybe just a little bit of background. Give us the history of the shrine on the grounds of Maryville.
Well, it was the grounds of Maryville Academy in back in 1986 or so. The community, the Spanish-speaking community, as well as other communities, were kind of looking for a place to call home in terms of a Catholic community. And they were looking for a group of pilgrims were looking for a place to celebrate the Feast of Our Lady Guadalupe. To make it short, Father John Smith, who was the director of the Maryville Academy in those years, welcomed the pilgrim and the devotion. Never did he ever imagine it would become a day where last year we had over 400,000 pilgrims come to visit the shrine. And so in 2013, Cardinal George dedicated 60 acres of Maryville Academy to be dedicated to the construction and the development of said shrine. And it is one of the shrines that's most visited in the country for this particular Marian advocation.
That's an amazing story.
And what's very important is that Father Smith said yes, because they went to, I know the story from him because he was on our board, they went to a few parishes that said no. And by God's great goodness, he said yes. And it's so much more, there's so much more of an ability to care for the folks that come, because the numbers are so great, especially during Guadalupe feast.
I never thought about that. Father Smith could have said no, and it never would have happened.
Well, yeah, where would it have happened?
Out of curiosity, Zeke, how many acres encompass the entire Maryville campus over on River Road, there, River and Central?
Part of the reason why the campus got the state of Illinois no longer wanted to support orphanages per se. They wanted to put children into foster homes, and so they lost a lot of their wards, and so they couldn't sustain the whole campus. So it's 120 acres of campus that we have there. And so when Colonel George divided it, he still wanted to continue the Maryville mission, but he wanted to extend it to a different kind of orphanage. So we look ourselves as continuing the mission of Maryville Academy as it started, a place where people are welcomed and people find, family. They find family in the church, and they find each other's families here.
Now, Father Sanchez, a very, 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 very important day. Will be today being, of course, All Hallows Eve, and tomorrow All Saints Day. But the tradition on Wednesday, the Day of the Dead, All Souls Day, tell us more.
Well, the Feast of All Souls, in Spanish called Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, a lot of people have a lot of comments about them. One of the things that we try to do here at the shrine is give an authentic expression of what that looks like. So as you would see it in different countries in Latin America, so people a lot of cultures are very strong on ancestor veneration. And so as we venerated our saints, we extend that to the veneration of ancestry. Where did our Christian faith come from? And so here at the shrine, we make a makeshift, we use we use a big plot of land to make a makeshift cemetery, and we invite all of our families to make an ancestry altar, to bring all of the photographs of your beloved ones, things that they enjoyed, their glasses, their shoes, or their favorite food, a little tequila, a little Coca-Cola, whatever they really enjoy. And it's absolutely a wonderful artistic expression, and it really begins with what we call the announcement or the pronunciation of the name. So all of those who have passed away, and they've given us their intention. So we make a special liturgy just to say the names of those who have passed away, with the liturgy, mass at 7 p.m. And then the rest of the evening is dedicated to fiesta. Is dedicated to celebration of hot chocolate, sweet breads, traditional foods that are in the Spanish community. If I may, one of the things I've been struggling a lot of, and the reason why we try to make it as authentic as we can, is because we don't. I keep trying to encourage the subsequent generation, the second, third generation of Hispanics, which tend to kind of follow along in some of the modernistic ideas, such as Halloween. Halloween was very much a Catholic idea, but Dia de los Muertos become an extension of Halloween, and it's not. It's meant to be a cultural identification of things. You're supposed to remember those who came before you. And so nowadays I'm telling people this is the other day is not Halloween. It's not just paint your face and have a party. It really is. If you don't have mass, you don't go to mass, you're not praying for your beloved souls, then you're wasting your time, really. And so what we're trying to do is invite folks to come and just to spend some time and remember you're not alone. And that's the most wonderful, merciful message we really have, both in the Feast of All Saints and the feast of the faithful departed, is that you're not alone. They are alive. You have access to them. For the Latino community, we have it easy feelings of they're with us all the time. The divine is always around you. And so we don't want to lose that sensibility in the life of people. And this is a great way to evangelize, especially the young children. All kids love this. They love it. But it gives the community an opportunity to meet each other's families, even from beyond. So it's great to hear the stories. This is grandma, this is grandpa, and the stories that come with it,
Now, are you familiar with the Disney movie Coco?
Yes.
That's a wonderful way to communicate to young people. It's a story about a little boy and his grandma dies, but she's alive for him. I mean, and maybe with different generations, we got to figure that out.
Well, the movie is really good about the sense of life after death. They're terrible, and probably because they can't talk about God. Even the story Coco, right? They blur out all the images of religious. They don't talk about she's with God. She come out with these monsters and all these, which is part of the issue. Is that I think, for instance, public high schools have Day of the Dead altars all over their high schools, but religious images are not allowed.
Oh,
and so
wow.
Once you start desacralizing the Day of the Dead, that's my point. Right. This is about Mass. It's about pray for the dead redeemed in Christ. And I don't think we want to, at least I don't want to sugarcoat it. I says, this is a profoundly religious expression that you're going to love. It is colorful. Religion is not boring. Our faith is not dead.
And it's so real because it's connecting the day we are born, we will one day die. So you connect that with the mystery of God. Mark, take us to break.
Yeah, we're going to take a break. WNDZ, 750 AM. Catholic Chicago, 312-255-840. Right, you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. We'll be back with Father Zeke Sanchez. When we come back, Father Zeke, I want to ask you, in terms of your generation and the generations behind you, how do we connect them? How do we connect them in significant ways? We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Did you know that Catholic Charities accepts car donations? If you're ready to free up space in your garage and put a stop to all those expenses that go along with owning a car, we will gratefully accept your donation, whether the car is running or not. You choose a pickup time that is convenient for you, and we will make the donation as easy as possible, free of charge. You'll receive a charitable donation receipt as well. We accept all types of vehicles nationwide, and you will know that your donation is made to Catholic Charities, an agency you can trust. To learn more about donating your car, call 877-786-4483. That's 877-786-4483. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Es fabuloso verlos.
Dobrze jest znowu być razem.
It's good to be together again.
After so many months apart, pandemic capacity limits have been lifted, and we want to welcome everyone back to church. We can all pray together again. And listen as our choirs lift their voices in song.
We've been together in spirit.
And now, when you are ready, our doors are open wide.
Nuestras puertas están abiertas de par en par.
Nasze drzwi są otwarte.
And we're here to welcome you back to Catholic Mass.
Ancestry and genealogy are more important every day. People all over the world are wanting to learn more about their family heritage for personal and for health reasons. At Catholic Charities, we are hearing from adults who lived for a brief time at St. Vincent's Orphanage, the wonderful life-affirming agency that operated out of our headquarters for 91 years, serving thousands of women, children, and families until it closed in 1972. Our post-adoption services help adults who want to learn more about their experience at St. Vincent's. Our compassionate staff members provide whatever family background information they can offer, along with support and reunion services. To learn more, call 312-655-7093. That's 312-655-7093. The spirit of St. Vincent's lives on in the inspiring stories that continue to emerge today.
We're back, WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408. You can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Tracy, here with Very Reverend Ezekiel Sanchez, rector of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Des Plaines. We're talking about the Dia de los Muertos. And Father Greg, you have a question.
Yeah, Father Zeke, first of all, you look about 30 years old. You know, what are your vitamins? And number two, as you were talking before, my background come from a Polish home, Polish tradition, history. Growing up as a boy, Halloween, of course, secular, was very, very big. In my family, All Saints' Day, very, very important. Holy of obligation, you go to Mass. In my family, All Souls' Day was important, but nowhere near like in the Hispanic community, the Day of the Dead, November 2nd. So why in the Hispanic tradition in Mexico is the Day of the Dead so incredibly, incredibly important in the tradition?
Well, I think this is where the church in Latin America got it right. It was already very important in Native cultures. So many Native Americans in Latin America is much the same. The issue of ancestry worship is very, very important because you never understood yourself as an individual. The concept of individual that came postmodern. Most people really understood themselves as, in fact, there's some places that you don't have the number for I, the word for I. That doesn't exist. And so it's the way people were brought up, and those traditions continue with those echoes of that important part of the culture's life. And so when the missionaries came and talked about the Feast of All Souls, talk about the life everlasting, they understood that. I mean, that's what in the story of Guadalupe, Juan Diego was particularly saying when he was up on Tepeyaquil, he thought he died. And he says, have I gone to the place of my ancestors? And so it's not uncommon. So that's why there was a very strong faith already that connected really well with the Christian message.
Now, it's interesting because our two youngest daughters are adopted from Mexico. So we were in Mexico many, many times. And one of the women that worked with us, who had a terrible accident, said, well, I talked to my lady. And she said, and my lady said, if, you know, she wanted to survive, said, if I survive, the lady said, take care of my children. And she took care of, she built schools, I mean, it was amazing, the impact. But what was amazing for me was the personal relationship she had with Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was like, I just talked to her. I talked to my lady. Now, Guadalupe's coming up, too, in December. What a reaction. What a faith movement of people. Explain that a little bit, would you, in terms of the relationship people have with Guadalupe?
I think a lot of it has to do with that Guadalupe filters. I guess, sadly, I guess one theologian kind of surprised me when he said, Guadalupe does a great job in filtering all the language about God that isn't God. And Guadalupe is the prism by which you find Jesus. You always get to Jesus through Mary. Like if I want to know, if I want to know you, you would tell me certain information about you, getting to know you. But if I really want to know you, I need to talk to your mom.
Talk to Mama.
You get the truth.
You get the
real truth. And with her, she really does clean up false images of God, and she presents to you the real Jesus. She's the one who gave birth to him. And so they take very seriously what Jesus said on the cross, behold your mother. And like I said, when the communities that valuing family that much, the more the community values family and life, the more she becomes valuable. And I think so when people come to Our Lady of Guadalupe, they don't feel threatened by her. She's that motherly figure, And so, however, there's 1,000 ways people come, and sometimes they come with extreme penances. But a lot of it has to do with the extremity of the life that they live and the things that they're asking for.
Zeke, you make me think of a story when I was about maybe 5 or 6 years old. I remember saying to my mother once, Mommy, I love you. And my mother said, Greg, I love you more because I'm your mother. They always said to me, Mommy, I love you. And she said, but I love you more because I'm your mother. And it always stayed with me. And
I think the folks that I met in Mexico that had that reverence feel that way about Mary.
Exactly.
Well, my image is, I'm in trouble, Mom. Dad's coming home.
Yeah.
She softened him up before I got
or like when I was a kid, I remember I always got called Greg. If I got called Gregory, it was not a good day. I'm in trouble with Gregory. If I got called Gregory Sigmund, it was not a good week.
Mark Joseph.
Yeah, it was not a good week.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to ask, Zeke, so you're talking about prayer and that intimacy in prayer. Many of our listeners and viewers may know you were in that airplane accident. Could you talk about that a little bit? What was your prayer on that plane when you thought you were not going to survive?
The military tell their cadets and the people who it's train hard and your training kicks in. And I was coming home from Durango, which is my parents' home state in Mexico. And I was coming home getting ready to think about the next steps I got to do over at the shrine. And when the plane was coming through, the only thing that came through my mind when I became aware that this is not good, this is going to be an accident really bad, and we don't know if we'll make it. The first thing that came through my mind is absolve, absolve, absolve. Just got into the prayer of absolution for everybody on that plane.
Oh, wow.
And everybody says, why did you think that first? And I said, the training kicked in. The training kicked in. The first prayer that came out of my mouth was, the prayer that we do every morning, "Oh God, come to my assistance." And I just said, "Lord, prepare us for whatever we need to go through." And everyone survived, thankfully. Everybody asked me, "Is it a miracle for one?" Yes, for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the name of I always tell people the name, as a little aside, I always say the name of the airport where the accident happened was called Guadalupe Victoria, the victory of Guadalupe.
Wow.
And so everybody points to the fact that the rector of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe was on a plane. And so I take no credit, guys. I'm a survivor. But I will say one thing I always tell people when they ask me this question. When I got back home after some hospital stay, and but my first night at the shrine, I went with my sister, and I said, "I don't want to be noticed. I don't want to be seen because I'm not ready for that." But there was about 4 families at midnight in front of the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, because it's an outdoor shrine,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And they said, "Father, how you doing? Glad you're doing well." And I said, "Well, thanks for coming." He says, "No, Father, you don't understand. We were on the plane with you."
Wow.
We were on the plane. This is at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And my mouth just dropped, and I said, "There's something here.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't, it just can't be too much coincidence here." And the only response to all that grace is thank you, Lord, thanks for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means I got to work. So every time someone asks me, says, "What happened?" I said, "God said, bring him up." But the Blessed Mother says, "Wait, I like the way he works. Leave him alone."
And he listened to his
guys.
mother.
Have a good work ethic, man, because you never know what that's going to save you.
Now, do you think that experience changed you, or did it just bring more of who you are to light, or what's your impression of that?
I think both. It changed me in the sense of when you get that close to knowing you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And people talk about when they get to, I remember Cardinal Joyce, when a couple of his surgeries, it was close for him. And a fear is removed from you. I would say that I'm less anxious, I guess, for today, with trying to be concerned about problems of the world, and even the problems of the church to some degree, and say it's in God's hands anyhow. So if I would have left, in what way would it have changed the world? Not much, I don't think. But you do much more alive, but if you're focused. And so it helped me focus. So I love what I do. I think I'm a better priest.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a good steward of the Lord's goodness and the gifts he's given. And I try to bring people to that. I was like, there's nothing to be afraid of, guys. And I think that's, when you talk about the generations, the question you were going to ask me, I find the generation behind me far more frightened.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of anxiety, and that's one of the things you see here at the shrine. All ages, little children, senior citizens, you name it, immigrants, non-immigrants, Americans, just everybody. When they come to visit our Blessed Mother, they come to her with the best and the worst, and there's a lot of anxiety in both.
Could you remind our listeners and viewers a little bit about the All Souls, All Saints events? Just remind them days, times, etc.
Sure. Well, All Saints is November 1st. We have liturgy in the evening so that more people, the majority of people, can come. And November 2nd, Wednesday, is the Feast of All Souls, Dia de los Muertos for us. And so if you'd like to participate in a truly authentic expression of how Dia de los Muertos is celebrated in other parts of the world, and enjoy some great food and enjoy some smiles and look some people's artistry and their creativity, please come and join us for the Feast of All Souls on November 2nd, starting at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. We're going to bring our program to a close. Very Reverend Zeke Sanchez, rector of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Thank you, Mark.
And just a good person and a great priest. And thank you for joining us this morning. I'd like to also thank Michael May, Brian Brock, our producers for the show. Father Greg Sakowicz had to leave a little bit early. They're filming one of the Cardinals' Masses, so I am closing, thanking everybody for listening and watching us today. WNDZ, 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, YouTube.com. Thank you for our viewers on YouTube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here. God bless. Have a wonderful day.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with